Hello, it's me again, and I've come back to you because of multiple requests that I've had for a certain type of new puzzle that's made its way on the horizon. No, it's not this. This looks like maybe one of Oscar's mechanical twisty puzzle monstrosities. It actually isn't. These are all variations of this guy over here. The 3x3x5. 3x3x5, this is a Smaz's version. But as you recall, it's a cuboid, and it's a shape-shifting cuboid. 3 layers here, 5 layers here. Odd turns to odd, which means it can move 90 degrees in all directions, just causing some bandaging over here. And we've gone through various strategies on how to solve that. But what we have as variations to this 3x3x5 are a couple things over here. One of which is, well, just your straight cross cube. This is something that I've been in the process of making for a little while. But in any case, if you take a cross cube, which is modified from a crazy 3x3x+ series, Saturn or Jupiter or what have you, and you unbandage it and then glue on various Rubik's Cube pieces, you end up with this cross cube. And you can turn it up and mix it, match it. Great fun. Anyway, this is probably going to become available soon too, so that you don't have to go through the process and wherewithal of making that. Now, in terms of how to solve this, well, we've seen this similarly with this guy over here. And I did a demonstration on this puzzle as well. So a cross cube is basically where the centers move freely, and we just glued on some pieces over here to make it what it is. The solve of this is pretty simple. It's basically like a centers only supercube. A supercube means that with the centers on a supercube all have very specific orientations and very specific places where it has to go. So if we take a look at this mechanical beast, here's what I mean by that. If I were to take this off over here, this is a standard 3x3. With a standard 3x3, the center doesn't really have much in the way of any specific orientation. You can rotate it any way you want. Generally with a 4x4, it's the same kind of a thing, but here with these cross cubes, I can't swap these two out because this and this will be wrong, and you can tell. So the solve of this is just like doing a centers only with a supercube, and a supercube means that the centers have specific orientations, unlike a regular cube where the centers don't have a specific orientation. So it's more like this. You can see these centers, if this were a normal 4x4, every center would look just like the rest, and I can swap these two and you wouldn't know and you wouldn't care. But because of the fact that you have two other colors here, these centers actually do have a specific orientation. So to solve this is like getting your practice with solving a supercube. So too, to solve this 3x3 is like solving the centers, this 3x3 cross cube, is like solving the centers of the next level up. If you have 4 centers in a supercube 4x4, this is 5 center pieces in a supercube 5x5. So really, this most resembles that. As you can see, you've got one color here, color here, color here. So each centerpiece has a specific place it has to go. Just like this over here. Now, of course, the difference is that this very center has a specific place. This one doesn't. This one doesn't have a specific place, but all the center edges and all the center corners do. So this is a good way to practice that. Now, to understand that strategy, and I can refer you to the tutorial or the demonstration where I showed you this, but if you understand how to solve supercube centers, then you can solve this entire puzzle. That's no big thing. So what do we have left over here? Well, we'll separate these two out and see that this is currently what I have regarding the 3x3x5 series. In the 3x3x5, what they did is pretty much had a cross cube, but they variably put different sides in. Here, these sides are just your normal 3x3, but then you've got this glued onto a cross cube on the top. So this moves independently. This moves independently. So really what we have is a 3x3x5 in this direction and in this direction, hence the cross cube. And it shape shifts in all directions just like a 3x3x5, lending it a degree of challenge. This is the L cube, which looks like it might be a 3x3x4 in 2 different directions. This moves independently over here. But it is actually more of a 3x3x5, or actually a 3x3x3 cross cube design, because if I move this down, this almost looks like an evil twin version, and this one doesn't move. If this were modified from one of these guys, then it would. So in any case, what it does is it also shapeshifts and lends another interesting challenge. So this is really a fantastic and fascinating way of variating cuboid strategies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the solve of this, but here's the guarantee that I make, that I've always made. No new algorithms. If you can solve a 3x3x3, and you can solve the centers of a 5x5 supercube, and you can solve a 3x3x5, you've got it. So basically the solve of this is basically the combination of these three. So if you need references to those, I can reference as to where to solve the 3x3, the 5x5 supercube, and the 3x3x5. But in any case, let's get back to this. Same thing with this, no new algorithms. Now looking at where the particular challenges of this puzzle may come from, because what I'm going to do really is solve the center as a 3x3, then I'm just going to solve these as 5x5 supercube centers. That's it. But there's a little bit of a twist here. And those of you who have attempted to solve this and ran into difficulty know that there's a potential issue with what appears to be something of a parity. And that has to do with the fact that I don't have a cross area over here. Because I don't have that, what makes this solvable and easily solvable, what makes these centers easily solvable without any problems of parity, is the fact that everything has a specific place. Unfortunately, with this puzzle, you have two centers where there isn't a specificity. This center and this center can be swapped out. So these two center edge pieces, corner pieces, and these two center edge pieces can be swapped, and you would know the difference. These can't be swapped because of these colors. These can't be swapped because of these colors. However, according to the law of cubes, I can't do an odd number swaps. So if I were to accidentally swap these two must be swapped as well. I wouldn't know if these were swapped wrong until the very end, when I find myself in a certain degree of parity, when I find myself with these two swapped or these two swapped, and everything is solved except for two edges or two corners, and I'm stuck. But understand where that comes from is the fact that I have equivocation of centers of my 3x3 version. And the way to look at that is two of these centerpieces are swapped, and they have to be swapped back in order to make that solved. So what am I talking about? Well, let's go ahead with the solve and see what we run into. So I'm going to just start off with a scramble over here. And now that I've done that, move this along here and here. And my goal is to make this as challenging and messed up as all possible. So I start off with a non-shape-shifting scramble just to really separate these out, because once I shape-shift, then I pretty much bandage certain pieces together. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to bandage anything together until I'm ready to do that, because I want to separate pieces out. Now these stickers can get a little flimsy, and I have to pull them back on. And again, that has to do with the sharp edges, I think, as you're scrambling it and turning it. So scramble it more. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue this process of scrambling, but I just wanted to demonstrate it a little bit, how it acts and functions like a cross cube. Turn it here, and I'm trying to turn some of these separately so I can enhance the scramble a little bit. Okay. Now just to show the shape shifting to those that haven't bought this yet and are thinking of it, we can move it along here. And this is now going to move like a 3x3x5 in two different axes, two different directions. So I'm going to continue the scramble and come back with it when I think it's challenging enough. Abracadabra. Okay, here we go. Nice and scrambled with a nice looking shape-shifted look to it. Well, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to solve the inner 3x3. And I'm going to do that by understanding that that's going to be the yellow side and the white side. Now the thing about this is there's really no parity per se. I know where all the centers are supposed to be. They're sticking out at me or sunken in right over there. So I'm going to do 3x3x3 strategy, just like this guy, to solve the top and the bottom. The middle layer is going to be kind of an empty set. Now here's the variation with this. The variation is that when I'm putting in my cross, which is the edges, I don't have any specific place where each particular edge is supposed to be. Here's what I mean by that. When I'm solving this with the beginner style, I'm going to put in the edges here. These are the edges. Edges are the pieces that articulate two centers, and the corners are pieces that articulate three sides, or join three sides. So this is the white. It obviously belongs up here, but I know which center this is supposed to be by, because it tells me it's right here. So putting in the centers, the edges rather, is just a matter of lining it up with the proper center here, bringing it up, and then same thing here. I'm going to move this down, line this up with the proper center over here, and bring it up. And this is done kind of intuitively, nothing to really stress yourself too much about, and up. So there's my cross. Over here, if I do the same thing, I don't know where these are supposed to be. So I'm equivocating all of them with each other. This is here. Is it supposed to be here? I don't know. I'm not going to associate it with these. I'm not going to do the terminal ends because these are bandaged right now. Normally when I solve cuboids, I do it by the terminal end, but I don't do it in this case just because of the particular structure with this. This is different than how I did the 3x3x5. So what I'm going to do then is just blindly find all of the white edges that are just adjacent to the centers. So not this. This is a corner, this is a corner. But something like this. This is just adjacent to a center, so is this. And I'm just going to randomly move them up here. I'm not putting them in a specific place, I'm just putting them up there. Find another one, and here's another one over here. Turn and bring it up. Okay, very good. I've got a cross, a non-specific cross, all of which could be equivocated for each other. The next part is the edges, the corners rather. Well, the corners are easy. That's my RIDIRD. In a Rubik's Cube, there's a very specific place they have to go, like this over here. Blue and orange has to come here, set it up down here, and I just sort of turn it in. Just for the sake of habit, RIDIRD, RIDIRD, and you keep doing this until you get it in. You don't have to do it this way if you're more advanced, but to those who are just picking this up, there you have it, RIDIRD. So I'm putting in the corners with complete comfort that everything is in its proper place and everything is where it's supposed to be. Okay, so this is all fine, and you can see I've got my cross, everything's lined up. I'm going to do the same thing here, but the corners that I'm looking for, again, are not the corners that are on the ends here. It's the corners that are just by the edges that are just adjacent to the centers. So bear in mind that's what you're looking for. So for instance, this is an example of a corner that's what I want. The corner is just adjacent to the edge. You're not looking for the tips over here. Let's see if there's another one that we can put in that's down here. So these are useful corners. So I'm going to move it down and across. Doing this the same thing, move it here, then do my RIDIRD, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for them to be just adjacent to here. This doesn't count. This is going to be one of my cross cube areas. So let's find some more. Here's another one here. Now again, I have no specificity. Any corner can go anywhere. I have no reason to put this here as opposed to here. It doesn't really matter. I'm basically saying that this face is completely covered by what's going to be up here. So I have two more to go. Find the corner, here's a corner here. And I'm just going to move it in, oh so effortlessly, throwing caution to the wind with zero specificity. Here, this one has to come up here, so move it down and move it in. Okay. So far, so good. Nothing particularly crazy about that. Now, when solving a 3x3, the next step is I turn it upside down and I solve the middle layer. I solve the middle layer, then I place the top layer. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Same thing, turn it upside down. What I'm interested now is solving the top layer. But because there's no specificity of where the pieces go, what I put in the middle layer, I really don't care. The middle layer is purely going to be my cross cube layer. So that middle layer is going to consist of all of these guys. The top layer is going to consist of my 3x3 portion. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to take all of my edges and move it up to here. Now what qualifies as an edge moving up to here? Well, you can see it easily when an edge isn't where it's supposed to be. These yellow edges are in the middle layer, they need to be in the top layer. Well, what I do is I actually, on a 3x3, focus on getting these and moving them down here. And that's going to be with the algorithm to move this down to here. If I want to move it to the left, UI, LI, U, L, U, F, UI, FI, and that brings that down here. But if I wanted to move this up and not even care what's happening over here, the way that I would do that, now let's bring this over here. So let's say I'm focused on bringing this up. Well, the way that I'm going to do that is in this puzzle, I'm focusing on taking these edges that are on the top layer and bringing it down. In this puzzle, I'm not going to care what ends up down here. I just want to bring these areas up to here. So if I do that same algorithm, I'm not focusing on this coming down here. I'm focusing on bringing this up to here. So this is going to exchange here. So UI, LI, U, L, U, F, UI, FI. Now in so doing, what that did is it did bring that up. It put it up over here. If I wanted to move this up here from the right side, just to review that algorithm, I'm going to put this one in place. This is going to come down here. But again, I'm just focusing on moving this up here. It's not going to touch any of these guys. And that's going to be U, R, UI, RI, UI, FI, U, F. What that did is that moved all of these up here. Now, I'm not concerned about the orientation, only the fact that they're up here. And that's all I really care about. Now, I'm going to keep this in this position over here to prove a point. So, what does that mean for this? Well, what I want is I want all of these edges, these yellow edges, up to the top side. What qualifies as the top side is either it's here, right next to the center, just like these two, or it could be here. Now this qualifies because this is not in the middle layer. This is actually in the top side, it's just rotated upside down. If it were over here, like we're not worried about this guy, but this guy over here, this doesn't count as what we're going to try to move up to the top. This is going to be one of our cross layers. You can see it's already functioning as that. But we're dealing with this. Again, we're looking at the edges that are articulating with the centers. So this edge belongs up here. This is not up here. This is in our middle layer. We need to move this up to the top layer. This is in the top layer. This is in the top layer. This is also in the top layer. The way to tell is that if you move the top layer and you're carrying the edge with you, then it's in the top layer. It's just upside down. So to move this up, what I want to do is I want to exchange it for something here that doesn't belong. Well, this belongs. It's just upside down. This does and this does. This one doesn't. Because you'll see you don't see a yellow one here or here moving with the top layer. So by doing that algorithm, I can do it this way or I can do it this way. It doesn't matter. As long as I move this down, this will end up here somewhere. But understand, with this puzzle, I knew exactly which direction to bring it down. With this puzzle, I don't. So I'm basically saying it's the same thing, but in reality, it's not the same thing, and that's where we run into trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring this down to here and bring this up. So that's going to be U, R, UI, RI, UI, FI, U, F. That's down here. So you can see this is up in the proper layer, this is up, and this is up. Now, we have a little problem. To those who may be astute, and it didn't affect this at all, you can see that I appear to have 3 rotated up in the proper place and 1 rotated down. That represents what appears to be a parity. The reason why that appears to be a parity is because you can't have a situation where one one piece is flipped upside down. You can have 2, you can have 4, but you can't just have 1. So that appears to be a parity. But in reality, it's not a parity. Because remember how I said when I was flipping these over, these have no specificity. These are all edges. These together are basically edges. And they're put in the middle layer. But I didn't really care what side they were on. But unless I do it exactly right, I'm going to get this situation. So it's not parity. It's actually placement. It's false equivocation. I'm saying that this is the same whether it's rotated or not. We've encountered this in various mods, where an edge piece looks exactly the same rotated one way or another. These obviously don't look the same, we just don't care where they're at. In reality, we can see that same situation over here, where let's say I've got this rotated and these are rotated down. In order to flip these up, we do the algorithm F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. And you can see this is the same thing. 3 are rotated up and 1 is rotated down. The reason why this happens is it's easy to see on this particular puzzle, on the 3x3. This is wrong. I recognize that's wrong. I knew to put these in correctly. This is wrong, so therefore this is wrong. This needs to be flipped and this needs to be flipped. If this were normal, it would be impossible to have this situation. That's why I say it's not parity, it's just false equivocation. You falsely equivocated this edge and said it's the same whether it's rotated. Now watch what happens when I bring this up and then rotate it right in the correct side in the middle layer. U, R, U, I. All right, bang, zoom, pow, splat. I'm going to bring this here. I'm now going to put this down in the proper orientation. Okay, so what you're going to find is 2 up, 2 down. And this is where we then do the algorithm to flip these. F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. We have this line over here. We do it again because what this algorithm does is it keeps this exactly where it is. It causes this to slide over here, causes this to flip over here, and this to flip over here, thus causing this to be okay. F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. And there it is. There's our cross. So basically when you run into this situation, understand that this is an impossibility. It's not a real parity. Pick any random side, any random edge, bring it back up and bring it back down but flipped. So I'm just going to bring this up. U, R, U, I, R, I, U, I, F, I, U, F. All right, so that did bring this down here. Now I'm going to wheel this around until I find the edge piece that doesn't belong, and that's this. Don't let this fool you. Again, this is not right adjacent to the middle. So now I'm going to bring this down, but it's going to be brought down upside down. How do I know it's upside down? Because when I did that algorithm, I flipped it up. I wheel it around until it's right back where it started from here, then bring it down again. So basically I moved it down. I moved this down from to the right. Then I just wheel this around until this is back here and move it down from the right again. That way you don't have to memorize which one was put up and in which configuration. U, R, bang, zoom, splat, pow, plink, clink. And lo and behold, what you'll find is you're fine. So now it's up. So if you run into that problem, it's not parity, it's false equivocation. Pick a random side and flip it upside down. And if need be, you can do your F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. That's just to demonstrate how to do that in this puzzle. You can see the 2 over here, and then you can just keep doing that until you get it back. R, I, U, I, F, I. We have the line F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. Okay, so now the next step that we usually would do is we would try to orient these. But we don't need to do this here because there is no orientation. There is an algorithm that we would use for this. This is in, this is in. We just turn it to where you have the one that's in to the right and to the back and go R, U, R, I, U, R, to U, R, I, and then it's all matched up. But we can skip that step. Corners, well, with corners we normally have to look at specificity of where these corners are supposed to be. Well, in this particular puzzle, we don't have to worry about that. In this particular puzzle, because there's no specificity of these corners, all I want to do is move the corners up. So this has to be flipped, this is fine, this has to be flipped, and this has to be flipped. Now normally what I would do is I would find corners that are in, this one is in the proper place, then I'd wheel these around, do the algorithm to permute these until they're in the proper place, which is U, R, U, I, L, I, U, R, I, U, I, L, something like that. So now this is right, and these all have to be put in. And that's basically doing R, I, D, I, R, D until they're all up. R, I, D, I, R, D, R, I, D, I, R, D. You know the words, sing along. So that's here. Move this in place. Do the same thing. Zoom, pow, splat. Now this one. And that's it. And normally you'd be done. With this one, all I'm going to do is the same thing, but I don't care which corner goes where. So starting off with this, I'm going to RID this until this corner is up where it needs to be. RIDI, RD, RIDI, RD, and I keep doing this until this corner lines up, and then I'm going to move this over here and do the same thing until this is up here. And what you're doing is you're actually doing a 3x3 solve, but at the end of the day, you're just solving the 3x3 portion of it. RIDI, RD, RIDI, RD, DI, RD, and there you go with your bad self. Okay, so this is all in and this is all in, and that's what I wanted to do because now I got it back to its native form, and these are freed up to do whatever I want and however I want to do it. Okay.